Hi, it's May 26th, 2017. It is Friday. I am not having a typical Friday. I'm recording lots of podcasts, but I needed to sneak this in here because last night I got lucky enough to get on the list to get invited to the Alamo Drafthouse 20th anniversary party. 20 years since that little tiny location on Colorado Street. Well, it wasn't that tiny. It was one theater instead of all the multiple theaters, but I guess tiny by Alamo standards, that we all used to go into and just kind of watch whatever was playing back in the day. I certainly was one of the early adopters of the Alamo at that point, so it was a pleasure to go to see the screening with so many old friends, people I hadn't seen for a long time. A lot of people I didn't know because I was never necessarily part of all the different little groups that formed of Alamo film fans. But I was definitely not going to miss this, and I'm glad I didn't. Getting into the theater right off the bat, there were free T-shirts available for each of us. It was like the Badass Cinema shirts with Pam Grier on them, which are very cool. I've never had one of those, so I was glad to get one. Just nice right from the get-go. And then, of course, a separate menu that brought back a few old Alamo items, including the much-beloved chocolate cake that I seem to be hearing mixed things on whether or not it was actually available that night. Tim League, the owner, has odd relationship with the chocolate cake apparently in some way that I'm not entirely clear on, but whatever. I got to see Cargill and his wife Jessica were there. George, who you guys have heard recently on a few highly suspect reviews, and his wife Lola, who will be on the Wonder Woman review with us, were there. Many other people. So none of us had any idea what was going to actually happen, what was the story. And once it all started up with David Strong getting up on stage as he is traditionally, like historically, known to do. This is an older gentleman who shows up in like just a loincloth and a Viking helmet, and they have him get up there and he's speaking synced up with a recording as an introduction, and he blows this big horn, and then confetti just started blasting out of everywhere. I don't even know where it was coming from. I was looking at the ceiling later trying to figure it out. I assume they had confetti guns on the balcony, and soap confetti as well, so I'm like covering up my drink, going like, no, don't get any of my drink. And Tim League and his wife Carrie League, who started the theater chain together, got up on stage both wearing animal masks and talking, and then it was a fun bit because apparently they were not, they had changed clothing they were wearing earlier, where Tim was wearing a bright blue tuxedo, like baby blue tuxedo, one of his traditional Tim League wears. His wife was wearing like a nice fringy blouse, and it turned out they had changed the clothes so that it was actually the other one underneath. It was kind of a cute thing to do. Appreciated that. It was a good laugh. You're like, okay, so what is this? What are we going to watch? And he brings out the special guest, and it is indeed Edgar Wright, which was, not a huge surprise. He's a big fan of the Alamo. He talked for a while after the film. There was a nice Q&A with him and Tim, but he also talked a little bit before it about his relationship with the Alamo and how, like Shaun of the Dead, when we were like, I believe the first American theater to show it in, where he brought to show it to Tim and Harry Knowles and the Ain't It Cool News crew, having no idea that if this would be a success, this film at all here or not. And then, of course, and he's like, yeah, all right. So after some fudging about, they introduced the film they were going to show was indeed Baby Driver, which, I was like, had been regretting very deeply not having seen it at South by, despite having heard some mixed reviews from folks about it. Like, some really loved it, some didn't like it at all, but most of the people I talked to seem to be right in the middle on it, saying it's their least favorite Edgar Wright film, but still enjoyable, still does what it does well. I didn't get to see it South by because I was sick that day, so sad about it, and I was like, oh, well, maybe I wasn't meant to see it that day, so I wouldn't be disappointed when I got to see it here. And they introduced it with a bunch of short trailers for some other racing-type movies, including two old Roger Corman, Ron Howard movies. Eat Dust, I believe, Eat My Dust, and I'm blanking on the other one. I mean, it was a cute way to start it off. And Baby Driver itself, in terms of a limited review that I'm going to give here, because I'm not even sure how much we're supposed to really talk about it yet. It doesn't come out till the end of June, I believe. and we will have a full review on the site when that happens. I was fall in the firmly mixed crowd. Certainly a terrific soundtrack. It does some really interesting things along the way as a film, but it has a deeply unbalanced sense of pacing, especially because the whole second act is very slow after you've had a super fast-paced first act and a super fast-paced third act. It's bloody. It's fun when it wants to be fun. The racing scenes are incredibly well shot and very cool to watch, which there's quite a few of. I thought some of the performances from the were a little over the top for the characters, like especially Jamie Foxx, who's kind of playing it a little too hard and fast. But it's supposed to be exaggerated. What he's doing here is much like he's done before. This is kind of a tribute to a niche genre of film. In this case, films like Eat My Dust, or more specifically, stuff like The Driver, which is a wonderful movie, thanks to the Summers Brothers. I finally watched it for the first time recently. And it's filled with all the usual tricks you expect from Edgar Wright. Lots of little hidden references, lots of little hidden appearances by people. I thought it was interesting. He came up with this film while listening to the album Orange by John Spencer Blues Explosion, which is indeed one of my favorite albums of all time. And the movie starts with the best track on it, Bell Bottoms, playing the entire track, and the movie very tightly synced to said track. And towards the very end, there is a cameo by John Spencer himself, which I thought was really cool. But overall, I did enjoy it. I definitely thought of his films, it's the one I probably enjoyed the least, but maybe that's because I'm not as deeply into those exploitation racing movies. Was it Crazy Larry something Mary? I can't remember the name of it. I'm terrible. Anyway, that being said, like I said, afterwards he came out on stage for a nice Q&A, talked about all the stuff you might have missed along the way, and then he left, which we're kind of surprised by, because we're like, oh, there's an after party, isn't he going to stick around? Well, no, because apparently he was having the flu, vomiting sick, and still got up on stage and did his thing. You never could have told to watch him, but apparently he went back to his room to go be ill. Wow, is a good guy to come out and do all that. One thing I didn't mention that was really weird, we're all like, why is there a sword next to all of our chairs? We're like, there's literally every chair had shoved next to it a cutlass, and not some cheap plastic thing. I mean a real, well, here, I'll just show you. See, it's a real metal cutlass that this is, yep, that baby's real, all right. And we're all like, what the fuck? This is not probably the best idea in the world. I mean, this particular Alamo is right in the middle of 6th Street on a Thursday night, and all these half-drunk film dorks walking around with real swords on their hips. I was wearing a belt, so I actually could attach it to my hip. But there was a little tribute where everyone held their swords aloft. It's kind of another tradition where at big events, Tim League always takes the top off a bottle of champagne using a sword. And he's like, well, from now on, this is how you have to open champagne. Fortunately, I never, ever, ever drink champagne. In fact, I don't drink alcohol at all anymore, unfortunately. Or fortunately, depending on how you look at it. And I'll just have a cool sword in my house. And I have so I don't have to break out the shotgun. I've got something here equally intimidating in case somebody busts into my house at any point. Let's cross our fingers that never happens. Anyway, there was an after party. There was some cool stuff like this cake here that you see. Wow, that's some crazy shit. That's based on an old Fantastic Fest tradition that popped up after they showed that... I keep wanting to say Gus Van Sant, but the movie, the Chaos Reigns movie, Antichrist, with the fox that says Chaos Reigns at one point in it. That became a thing, a meme for Fantastic Fest. I'm not quite sure how it happened, but it did. They even ended up giving out T-shirts of it on a later year. It's Chaos Reigns. It just became a thing because, in a sense, that during Fantastic Fest, chaos does in fact reign. So that was, you look at that, that's pretty fucking cool. And there was a photo booth that were taking pictures of you with more Chaos Reign shit. And another fox. There was a DJ. There was some DJ stuff I missed I didn't get to see, including Tim League singing, which he always does at every special event. But just got to say, overall, I'm super grateful to the Alamo Drafthouse, who's created so many years of fun and quality cinema. And, just whenever I go see a film at the Alamo, I'm just kind of struck by how high quality the bulbs are, how great the sound is, just how it's brighter and more pristine looking than whenever I see a movie at another theater. I mean, I'm not exaggerating. This stuff is definitely true. They are true lovers of cinema. It is a church of cinema, and I am super grateful to live in the town where it all started with and to even be friends with the people who started it. If you do have an Alamo Drafthouse near you, I implore you to give them your money, because they are good people and they're doing their best to create the most friendly way to watch a movie that you can. And have a good long Memorial weekend.